Right, so today we are making sauerkraut. It is one of our family favorites. We love sauerkraut for its health benefits. It's feeding our microbiome, so it's giving us all the good gut bacteria that we need. And it's also really delicious. And you know what? Growing up, we used to have the bag kind. You know what I'm talking about. The bag that just like opened up and the smell of it was so awful. It was so salty. It didn't even really taste that good, actually. And then when I started making my own, probably 8 or 10 years ago, I just fell in love with it. So we're gonna just start out with a couple heads of cabbage. And actually what I was gonna do before is the starter culture. This is off of culturedfoodlife.com. We love it. It's a starter culture. You don't have to use it. You can just use salt for your preservative, I guess. And basically this is going to get your pH to a level quickly. And so it's a lot safer, although I have only done this twice and we actually love the flavor of it. And I think it just cultures your things a lot faster. So it's just a powder. You can find it on culturedfoodlife.com. I love Donna Schwenk and all of her health stories. Just the different things that all of the kefir and kombucha and sauerkraut and all those health benefits of all those different things are so great, and I learned so much from her. So I'm just gonna put that in there and let it dissolve while we're chopping up the cabbage. We're actually gonna get some apples in this one. So this is gonna be an apple kraut, and I just have the recipe pulled off of her website. Like I said, culturedfoodlife.com. I'm not getting paid by her. There's no advertisement for her, but I just love her stuff, and I think she's really doing a great thing. So this is gonna make, like, one of these packets in your box that you get from her makes about 5 pounds of veggies. This is probably a little bit more, but it'll be just fine. I'm gonna go ahead and start chopping up the cabbage into smaller chunks. So just go ahead and chop this into super small pieces that you would want to eat in your sauerkraut. Just got this new knife for Christmas and it is deadly. Very sharp. So something I learned today, actually, when I was pulling up this recipe to try something new with this apple kraut, is apples are prebiotics, which just means food for all of your bacteria, your probiotics in your gut. So it's going to really increase the nutritional value of your sauerkraut. And I think it's gonna be a really good mix. I've never mixed in fruit and veggies before. So we're gonna give it a shot today. I made a quart the other day of sauerkraut and the kids seriously eat it in a meal. I think it's something that once your body starts to get used to cultured foods, you're starting to crave those things more and more. And so start out small, start out with just, you know, one or two new food groups at a time, even if it's just sauerkraut to introduce to your kiddos or yourself. Just start small. But honestly, making these things at home and getting your kids involved has been so helpful in them kind of taking ownership of their own health and learning how to cook, learning how to preserve foods, learning about gut health and learning about wellness instead of how to diet and how to exercise and all the things that I think our world does too much of, which are not healthy ways to look at our bodies. Especially since I have daughters, it's something I'm really wanting to encourage them is just a really holistic approach to food. And the more they're in the kitchen and helping me cook, the more they're gonna kind of get in tune with how we feed our body nourishing foods and what it's gonna do for us. You're gonna feel well. You're gonna hopefully build up your gut so healthy that you can withstand that common cold. You can stay away from flus and viruses and things like that. So the apples, I'm just kind of slicing in. That's what I saw on her website, just putting into a few slices. And I'm gonna do 4 because that's what her recipe calls for. Like I said, watch out for your knife. And honestly, the food processor is super fun because the kids can really get involved. And it's a lot less messy. All right, so we are just going to chop up the last of the 4 apples here into some slices. You could also throw these through your food processor too and mix it in with your sauerkraut in the same kind of texture. But we're just gonna leave these ones out for Miss Piggy. Nothing goes to waste here on the farm, let's tell you. One thing I try to really make sure that we do when we're cooking in general, but really fermenting and preserving things is having a clean environment. So that's why I brought it into the office away from the natural cooking elements, because sometimes things can get crazy. And you have clean dishes and dirty dishes. It was just easy to start here. But also with your utensils, make sure things are clean. Your jars are rinsed out of dust and mosquitoes that could have died in there over the winter. Who knows? You know what I mean? Just make sure it's a real clean environment. And I'm going to take these back out. And so you're also going to use a tablespoon in this mixture with that packet. A tablespoon of Himalayan salt. I love the Himalayan salt because it still has all the vitamins and minerals in it before it's been stripped to make iodized salt. So what the salt is going to do as it hits that cabbage is it's going to start breaking down your cabbage. And this is going to create its own sauerkraut juices. And so you can use a chopper, and I probably will once I get it in the jar. I'll start chopping it down, but it's gonna be some good workout muscles, let's be honest. With your hands, you're gonna get that salt worked into all of the cabbage leaves. And I'm probably gonna maybe chop up the last little head in here once this breaks down. I just don't have enough room. As I can see, we're spilling over here. So it does make a little mess, but you know what? It's going to be well worth it. Just keep smushing this down. It's gonna create, like I said, that natural sauerkraut juice. And it's just gonna start breaking down the pieces so they're not so hard, which it'll do when it cultures anyway. So some of you guys are maybe new to the culturing foods idea. It's been around for years and years. People have done it. Our grandparents, I'm sure your grandparents did it. They had crocks of sauerkraut. It was just a way of preserving back then. They didn't have, obviously, refrigerators, and they didn't have ways to preserve any of their food, so they had to find natural ways to do that. And so little did they probably know how much health benefits they really did have. You can also check out scurvy. That was a disease that sailors got years ago as a vitamin C deficiency. And there's actually a really cool story that Donna talks about on her website on a sailor that had a 100% success rate of bringing all of his crew back on his ship, and he was the first one to do that. Well, when they figured it out, it was because he brought crocks of sauerkraut because he loved it so much, and so it was a delicacy on the trip with all these guys. And so it was the first one that none of them died of scurvy, which is it's a really nasty way of dying. If you want to Google that, go ahead. It's pretty raw. So you're gonna throw all that cabbage in there. All right, so I'm just using like a hamburger chopper that I use all the time. I'm just gonna start chopping that in because what that is going to do is just start creating more sauerkraut juices for you. And also it's gonna pack it down, because the trick with fermenting is you wanna make sure that whatever you're fermenting, if it's carrots or if it's dilly green beans, whatever it may be, you wanna make sure that whatever vegetable you're doing is below the water line. Otherwise it can start to kind of grow some funky little things that aren't necessarily harmful. What's amazing about the way natural culturing is, fermenting, is that it keeps so many trillions of good bacteria in that the invaders, the bad bacteria, cannot get into the jar. It's very hard to, because they're so powerful at that point by the natural fermentation process of salt. And also I'm gonna throw this in there. This is just that mixture. We're gonna add a lot of filtered water at the end anyway. All right, so we're just gonna throw all of the apples down on the side so it can be kind of pretty. This is honestly really fun because I've never mixed fruit in with my ferments before, so I'm excited to see how the kids like it. I'm gonna add some more cabbage. All right, and then I'm gonna chop up the last little few heads now that I have some room in my bowl. And I'm just gonna take that core out, so I'm just gonna cut around it. Gets a little tough. All right, chop that up. And you can also save these outer leaves of your cabbage for the very end, because like I said before, if your vegetables start to come up above your water line, you can use some leaves of the cabbage on the very top, and that'll kind of keep them submerged below that. Honestly, a lot of people are pretty scared about fermenting because they're scared of, you know, hurting their kids or messing it up. I've been doing it for 10 years and we're still alive. No, it's been a really fun process of learning about gut health and learning how to eat whole foods and kind of cook the way our grandparents used to back in the day. All right, I'm gonna throw that back in there. And that actually might be enough to get my, I'm gonna throw a little bit of extra salt over here, it can't hurt. Just to kind of get that salt to break down that cabbage. And just gonna do the same thing here. It is smelling good in here. It's starting to smell like sauerkraut. I also learned this about vegetables, that when you know, we can't all afford an organic lifestyle. We can't all grow every single food that we make. It's just not possible with your living conditions, you know, whatever kind of soil you have. For us, we can't grow a lot of things. Our growing season is really short here. It's been frigid here. So we have long winters and we have really hot summers. So what's cool is when you take a head of cabbage, and it could be a conventional grown cabbage, maybe sprayed with different sprays, pesticides, herbicides, whatever. And when you culture it, it actually decreases all of those chemicals in the vegetable, which I think is amazing. It actually eats like 99% of the chemicals from the studies that I've read, so that's pretty neat. So if you can't eat organic, you might as well ferment, because it's a much more feasible way to do it financially, and it's much healthier for you. It increases all of your nutritional value of what you're eating. All right, so that'll be good. I could probably go for a few more minutes chopping this up, but we're just gonna get this in the jar, add some more of our apples, and I'm gonna kind of smush it down a little bit. I don't wanna smush too much on the apples because I don't want them to start looking all funky. I want them to be pretty in there. The salt in your cabbage is also kind of gonna be a preservative for the apples, so I can't imagine they're gonna get brown if my predictions are right. So we're just gonna throw some more apples in there, and I might not fit all this stuff in here, so I can mix it into another batch that I'm gonna make this week. Or just make a salad. So I'll do another layer of apples, mix some of that cabbage. Like I said, we're gonna kind of just keep trying to chop that, creating its own juices. You can see the juices starting to rise. So you're getting all that natural juice just pouring out of the cabbage from that salt reaction with it. And then we're gonna fill it up to the top of the line, and I'm gonna save a couple leaves off this head for the very top, and I'll show you what we'll do at the end. If you make your own yogurt or you make your own kefir, you can also use your own whey, which is straining any of those two things. And that's another way of, you know, using it as a starter. So then you could omit the starter culture that I got altogether. There's lots of really great recipes to use whey up. Or you could just use plain salt, like I said, but you want to make sure that you follow a recipe that's really legit, because you want to make sure the salt is at a high enough content so that it can make sure the pH level is the way it needs to be with your veggies. All right, so we're just going to pour some water in there, and we're just going to cover the veggies submerged. And you see how those top ones are coming up, and that's okay. That's why I'm going to continue to keep pressing down a little bit. And you want to give your jar some room to breathe, so I didn't fill it all the way up. In fact, this might be a little too high, but we'll see, because you're, as it's fermenting, it's going to build up a lot of pressure. I believe it's called lactic acid. Like I said, I'm still it's a journey, you know, doing this health food stuff. It's a journey of learning, so never be afraid to never have all the answers, because we certainly don't. All right, so you see how I just took that head of cabbage, and I'm just going to tuck that in so that it kind of stays below. And that's all we need. The rest of it is submerged. I will put a loose lid on here, or you could do a coffee filter with a rubber band. You just want to make sure that this is sealed. I'm going to kind of clean up the edge of this. You want to make sure it's sealed off from bugs, from dirt, debris, dust, kiddos, anything that could get into it. You want to make sure to cover it. Okay, so you want to make sure that when you are done, you have the coffee filter, or you can use like a cheesecloth, or you can use even like a dish towel. Make sure that you set it out of direct sunlight for about 6 to 8 days minimum. You want it to be between 68 and 85, I believe. And in the winter, it's a little trickier here because we are really cold, and this year actually it's pretty nice because we have a wood furnace, and so it's been super toasty. But a lot of times during the winter, our ferments slow down dramatically because it's not as hot in our house. So there you go. There is a simple apple kraut, and I can't wait for another week so that we can pop this jar open and eat it because it is going to go fast. Thanks for joining. Catch us next time.